Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Instructional Continuity webinar series. This is Phase 0 Project Management. We're going to go ahead and get started in about 1 minute. Hello, folks. Good morning, and welcome to the Instructional Continuity webinar series Phase 0. This is Project Management. If you can hear me, do me a favor and please raise your hand in the Zoom function just to make sure that I know. Thank you. I see quite a few of y'all have raised your hands as well. So thank you so much for joining us today. You can put down the hands now. I appreciate how eager folks are. But we will go ahead and get started. So my name is Andrew Hodge, and I am the Director of Director of Innovative Instructional Models here at TEA. As we all are in this great state, having a lot of fun with teams over the past few days, but we're very excited that you're here today. So as I mentioned before, this is the Instructional Continuity webinar series. It's Phase 0 Project Management, and we're very excited to have you. This is part 1 in a series of, that you'll have over the course of the week from Monday through Friday. And each individual webinar is meant to give you a better sense of the degree of planning that needs to happen, the degree of planning that you've already done, and all the resources that are available that we've pulled together for you at TEA. I want to, before we start, acknowledge that there is a Q&A box on Zoom as folks are getting more and more accustomed to Zoom. So please use that Q&A, and we will be coming to that over the course of the webinar in order to answer your questions. So as I mentioned earlier, this is Phase 0 Project Management, a series of 5 different webinars that are coming to you this week. Phase 0 will really ground in identifying the key working groups that need to be present with this work. Then we'll go into Phase 1, which will be a conducting of a landscape analysis. So really assessing access for students and teachers related to technology, instructional materials, and instructional delivery models. Phase 2 on Wednesday will focus on really making that decision on your at-home instructional models before you turn to Phase 3 on Thursday, which is solidifying that plan based on the analysis that you did in the prior phases. And then finally, Phase 4 on Friday is monitoring and support, which helps focus on overseeing ongoing operations, monitoring student learning, and continuously improving the at-home instructional model. Want to note that all live webinars will be each day at 9 a.m. They can be accessed using this same Zoom link, so it's a recurring webinar. And then we'll be recording all webinars and posting them to the TEA Instructional Continuity webpage, which we will be focusing on. We'll be running you through today. So glad to have you. I know this is a hectic time for a lot of folks, so thanks for taking some time out of your day. Our goals today are threefold. One is to provide an overview of the TEA Instructional Continuity Framework. Two is to review the structure and available components of all phases of the framework. Three, we're going to do a deep dive into the guidance and tools for phase 0, which is project management. Want to note that since this is the first day, we will be spending more time on the overall instructional continuity framework than folks will on Tuesday through Friday. But then we will dig into overall project management tools that are included within the framework. So with that, I want to actually switch over to our instructional continuity webpage, which I'm actually going to go back to the TEA homepage so you can see how to navigate to it. So directly on the tea.texas.gov homepage, you'll see a coronavirus heading, and then an option to get updates on the coronavirus support and guidance that we're putting together, and alongside a lot of district partners whom we're very thankful of having the opportunity to work with. If you scroll down on this page, you'll see a variety of information related to the COVID-19 virus, and specifically on that page related to instructional continuity planning, you'll see this button. So go ahead and click this button. You will see dates of the last time that we've updated. We're updating almost daily, so expect these dates to change and expect the content included within each of the sections that we have to change as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this, and this will bring you to our Instructional Continuity Planning Framework homepage. Now, the purpose of the Instructional Planning Framework is to help districts launch at-home schools and to provide supports to do that in a way that maximizes time for student learning. There's a lot of supports in here, but before we dive in, I do want to acknowledge that districts are in different places and districts have different priorities, and that's okay. So we're putting these resources out as guidance and as an opportunity for folks to learn what other folks in the field are doing, but by no means is this a prescriptive plan for districts. This is a suite, a framework with a suite of supports and resources for districts to be able to use as you plan for instructional continuity within your districts. Scrolling down on the page, you'll see a few things. So this is divided into one section, which is our Instructional Continuity Framework resources, which you'll see here, and we'll spend the bulk of our time with today. And then you'll see each phase of our Instructional Continuity Framework separated here for you to be able to dig right in to where you are in the given phase. Additionally, there is guidance that we've provided below. This is kind of high-level guidance that we put out, but within each of the phases, you'll see guidance and resources specific to each page. So I'm actually going to just click into a phase real quick so that you can see some of the information that's included. So once you click into a phase, you'll see 4 separate columns. The first column is the individual, what we're calling planning category, which we will cover in depth here in a minute. It is also aligned to individual resources created by our team at TEA, resources that we've been able to curate out in the field, along with district created examples, which are my favorite because we get to highlight and learn from the work that's happening in the field. I'm going to click back out and focus in on the resource that I think is the best place to start when you are developing your instructional continuity plans. And that's this Instructional Continuity Framework overview. You'll see everything pops up in an attachment. And so you just click and open up that attachment, and then you get the version of the file that we posted. So this is the TEA District Instructional Continuity Planning Overview. And again, you'll see that the date there is March 20th. We're posting a new one here later this afternoon. But we look to be reposting these resources quite frequently. When you go through this document, you'll see the overall goals of the program, which we covered previously, but then specifically how we can help, which is building resources and guidance in order to support districts in the main phases that we see across this work. And again, we're going to spend the bulk of our time today digging into the individual phases and then thinking about this as an entire project and showing some different project planning tools. So we see there are three main critical success factors here. One is continuous student learning, just making sure that kids are continuing to learn. Obviously, we want to make sure that their health and their safety are number one. But we do see a huge opportunity here to continue learning across the state. We want to optimize resources, and this is something that I want to focus in on specifically because this isn't about going out and finding all these new and different ways of doing things. This is maximizing the use of your existing and available district resources. It's tweaking those to be able to, tweaking those to be able to use them in a different setting now. But we're really encouraging folks to think about what is at your disposal right now so that you can optimize that and alter that for different settings. Finally, want to set clear expectations. This is a time of great ambiguity, and we know how important it is to create clear roles and responsibility for students, for teachers, for other district staff, and also for parents. There are 5 different phases within the instructional continuity framework. Phase 0 is where we are right now and what we're focusing on, but you'll see that multiple phases over the course of time. These are meant to be sequential, so going from phase 0 through phase 4, but also we recognize that districts are in different spots, so please use the judgment on the resources and tools and plans you've created before choosing where to jump in. I'm going to scan over some of these resources just given that we've reviewed them before, but do want to root in the different, what we're calling planning categories, which are these sections underneath every single phase. So the first planning category, the first phase, conduct landscape analysis. We look at this in 3 ways. One is to assess at-home technology access. The second is to assess the instructional delivery method access. So this would be something like learning management system if you do have that platform, or potentially paper materials if you don't have an online platform. And then finally, access to quality instructional materials. The way that our framework is broken out is that you'll see within each phase and planning category a host of guiding questions or resources or suggested steps. And then you'll also see resources that are included in each one. Again, we will dive into each phase over the course of this week with very in-depth analyses of resources. So I'm not going to spend a ton of time on that today, but do want you to be able to orient to this overall framework and structure. Phase 2, you'll see that we focus on a couple things. One is determining the at-home instructional model. And then the other is to be able to set your policies for grading and monitoring. So these are things like what are our graduation requirements, or what is attendance, which are both local, grading and graduation are local decisions, but we have some guidance for you. Phase 3 is around operationalizing the at-home model. So designing your schedules, your staffing models, communicating your plan, providing model-aligned professional development, and then purchasing, printing, or distributing your instructional materials. And then we wrap that up in phase 4 with monitoring and support, monitoring student progress, providing teacher support, troubleshooting, and supporting ongoing operations. Again, this deck is included in the instructional continuity homepage. So that is where you can find it right here, and is a good place to start your exploration of the tools that are within the instructional continuity framework. Now I want to focus on our instructional continuity detailed guidance. As a check right now, I'm looking at the chat. Go ahead and will you please raise your hands if you can hear me? Thank you. So if you're unable to hear a couple things, one is keep problem solving. There's a lot of guidance on Zoom problem solving right now. The other piece is that all these webinars will be recorded. So we'll make sure you get this information in the next few days. It'll also be posted on that instructional continuity planning page. Thank you everybody for the raised hands. So again, rooting in this resource, going back to the instructional continuity planning page, this is the instructional continuity detailed guidance. So if you click on that, this planning guide will come up. This planning guide is essentially your master document that details both the overview and purpose of the framework, but it goes into each individual planning phase and includes guidance and resources on each individual planning category within each phase. So we're gonna walk through this. This is really your kind of master resource for how you'll think about this planning. So again, the purpose of the entire framework is to help districts launch at-home schools that maximize instruction time. And then this is really an overview of the entire framework. If you look at this slide right here, this answers the question of what is included in the framework. It starts with phase one, again, has all of our planning categories, and you'll see detail on the planning categories below. To navigate this site, we built a table of contents right here. These are all linkable. So if you want information on phase 3.1, for example, all you have to do is click it, and then you jump down to 3.1. And the beauty of doing, there you go. Okay, 3.1. So each of these pages is divided into a few different sections. The first section is overall guidance, which includes your planning category activities. So essentially what you need to do in each of these planning categories that we've identified by having conversations with folks in the field. So you see these are all specific to 3.1, which is design at-home learning schedules and attendance plans. So the activities identify your time constraints that exist, set weekly and daily schedules, develop and incorporate progress monitoring plans by subject and grade, and then create a plan to track and monitor student attendance. Some of the principles, some of the guidance that we've given within each section include information like guiding principles, guiding questions, things that you should keep top of mind when planning, and suggested staff support. Who should be involved in this work? Specifically within each of these planning categories. This is just some guidance. This is by no means an exhaustive list, and every district has different considerations. So the leadership team should be making these decisions on who should join. In addition to the TEA resource, or in addition to the guidance that we just went over, there are TEA resources. There are additional resources and district created examples. So within each TEA resource, within the resources section, there are resources that we've listed that are posted. There are also resources that are listed that are coming soon. Again, we will be updating these documents over the course of the week in the next couple weeks in order to make sure that they're staying up to date with our added resources. So we'll have TEA resources. Those will mostly consist of any kind of consolidated list that we could pull. There's a lot of information out there. I know a lot of y'all have been inundated with resources. Our intent with a lot of these matrices and lists are to be able to organize that a little bit in order to make sense of the seemingly infinite amount of resources that are out there. You'll also see in our resources a lot of templates. So for example, if I'm gonna make an at-home student schedule, what's a template that I can use in order to do that? In addition to the TEA resources, we've cultivated at-home, additional resources that are out in the field that we've seen that folks think that districts have seen a lot of value in. And so those are listed as well. And then there are district created examples. This is my favorite because this allows us to essentially pull on the work of folks that are in the state, also some that are outside of the state to see what they're doing. And so this is a great place, the district examples, to see where the individual districts are that are doing this already. Um, at the end of each resource section, you have the ability to click on this link, which will bring you to this the phase specific webpage that we found earlier. So that's embedded in that planning guide document and will take you directly to the resources that are listed on that page. So now that we've done an example of one of the resources, we are going to let's see if we solve the problem of getting Teams to actually close. Okay, so we just dug into one individual planning category. We're gonna pop back and focus on the specific intent of today's webinar, which is the phase 0 project management section. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that link and it'll pull me down to the project management section. You'll see within phase 0 project management, same as the previous example that we looked at, but there are planning category activities that enable you to listen to and learn what we've seen other districts find value in terms of being able to plan out over the course of this period. So 2 things specifically there for this planning phase is outlining cross-departmental district task force expectations, structure, and meeting cadence. So who's going to do this work? When are they going to meet? How are they going to meet? And what's the overall scope of work of that team? And then creating a project plan. And we built essentially a project planning tool for this that we're excited to turn over to you guys. So specific guidance before we dig into the individual plan is, utilize this planning guide, this document. We've done a lot of work to listen to folks in the field and figure out how they're thinking about tackling this task. And so we put that together in this planning guide. So we hope that it is a helpful resource for you. The second kind of guiding piece here is, build that instructional continuity task force. But really think about who needs to be on that steering committee, on that leadership team. What are the individual subcommittees that you have at your disposal? You got a lot of great folks in your district. Who are the folks that can add specific context to this work? And let's pull them in as a subcommittee. Finally, make decisions on when and how teams meet. I know on our team specifically at TEA, we've been having daily stand-up meetings first thing in the morning, 30 minutes to an hour, that really discuss the things that need to happen, share relevant updates, and then deadlines for next steps. Finally, there is a task force project plan. We're going to dig into that in depth in a second, so I'm going to gloss over that for now. The next piece outlines the steps for planning. So this is essentially what we'll do now. So do here in a second, so I'm going to skip it. We have suggested staff support, so the folks that should be leading this work, resources posted, which is this instructional continuity framework overview, in our editable Excel-based TEA instructional continuity planning tool. In addition, we have additional resources that will be posted on our website within this document within the next day or so. So I'm going to go ahead and dig into our instructional continuity planning tool. And so this again is linked. It's something that you can click. And so what you should see when you click on the instructional continuity planning tool is this document. So I'm actually going to reroute it back into the, you can get directly to this from the instructional continuity homepage. So that's where I want to take it from. But all the links are, we try to do our best to link these documents within the other respective documents. So you should be able to click on any documents and get to the same tools. So here is the instructional continuity planning tool. There. All right. I'm going to go ahead and increase the zoom on this to 70% because that's how my computer likes it. All right, so you'll see a few things within this planning tool. The planning tool is separated from left to right into different columns, which are the phases. These align with the phases that we've already seen, and the planning categories, the same planning categories that we've already seen. We made a quick description of each planning category in column D, and then included the individual activities within each column. So these line up directly to the planning guide, and this is in your column E. In column F through column AB is the district owner, and then the suggested time of work, the suggested day with which you'll tackle these decisions. So if I'm in a district and I'm using this tool, what I'm likely going to do first is review the different phases to make sure I'm grounded in what needs to happen or what should happen, or what we've seen to be valuable with districts. I'm also going to review all the different planning categories. One thing that's important when you're reviewing this and when you are approaching using this planning tool is to kind of do an analysis of where you've been and what you've already created. For example, a lot of folks will say, you know what, we've already talked to our students and our teachers about at-home tech access. We know the hardware, we know the infrastructure, we know the software that's available to our students. So I might spend a little bit less time within these activities just because we've already done that, and that's okay. Districts should use this as a tool and a frame as they take on planning. It's not necessarily a prescriptive plan that's meant for all 1,200 of our districts across the state. If I'm thinking about this from a district lens, a planning lens, I'm likely going to think back through my team, and I'm going to start assigning tasks here. So for example, the project management will probably be the superintendent, maybe that task force that you set up from the beginning. So those are probably the things that you're going to want to just assign to those folks. And then, and those are the things that are going to need to happen early on. So maybe day one is actually today, and you say, we're going to outline our people and we're going to outline the plan. We're going to do that first thing. If I'm going through this and I say, you know what, for accessing at-home technology, I know that there's an IT team component to this. I also know that we need, we can create that survey, we can understand what our folks have, but we need to actually be able to ask our parents and our students what the availability is. So I'm going to include how about our school level leaders or school administrators. And there's also, to an extent here, where your teachers might need to help, but I'm actually not going to include them as an owner of this, but I'm keeping that in mind that is a part of the plan. For analyzing the survey results, maybe that's the IT team again, maybe that's some of your district leadership. These are just examples of how you can go through this and start to think about assigning out these individual activities. Again, once you get down into the instructional materials, there'll probably be a lot of C&I folks, chief academic officers, assistant SUPs of C&I, maybe some department heads to set the division. So again, use your understanding of your district to be able to use this as a planning tool and then move forward. Lastly, we have proposed suggested days for this work. Again, this is based on our understanding from talking to the general field about the work, but not necessarily specific to your individual content in context. So the last thing I would do here is run through this suggested day, and this is likely with this team, right? And this is a part of activity number 2, actually. And be able to say, you know what, this survey is something that actually we already did, so I'm just gonna knock it off and get it out of our project plan. Or you say, this is something we can actually do today, so I'm gonna change that. And then we can actually organize our staff and organize that data over the next 2 days so that we can ultimately make some decisions going forward. So play with this, use this as a tool as it best meets your needs. This is designed to give you kind of a sense of what should happen over the next few days. Again, these are all just suggested days. They're not you need to make the decisions that are best for your district. So that is the instructional continuity planning tool. I'm going to kick back out into our instructional continuity framework and back to this homepage. I'm going to do a real quick check for any kind of chats. We're going to open up for questions here in a minute. But I want to make sure that we got everything. So the key point here, really, that tool, the tool that we just went through is it's a tool provided for y'all to be able to use to organize all the things that we have seen folks are looking to get done. It is by no means prescriptive. Districts are in different places. You may have already accomplished some of the tasks that you needed to put in place over the next few weeks. Maybe you've accomplished some of the tasks, but you also want to go back through and make sure that you've done it with fidelity. So use that planning tool for just that reason. So with that, I actually want to pause and open it up for questions. And before we lose folks, I do want to just go back and remind folks the next few days with our webinar series. So this is kind of a high level focus on what is this overall tool in the project management phase. And then the next few days, we're digging in deep to the individual phases. So please join. Again, all of these will be at 9. All of them will be accessed using the same Zoom link, and all of them will be recorded and posted to our Instructional Continuity Framework webpage. The last thing I would say is don't let our webinars slow you down. If you are ready to roll, use that Instructional Continuity Planning Guide to be able to give you more of a guided framework, a guided roadmap forward. But that's something that you can dig in now, and then our staff is going to be digging into individual resources associated with that guide in the coming days. So with that, would love to get your questions. And as if you do jump, please remember that you can always submit your questions to disasterinfo@tea.texas.gov. And we have a staff of folks that will be there waiting and ready to answer your questions. But we'll say we're getting in a ton of questions right now. So we're responding to questions in terms of FAQs. We are getting a lot of similar questions. So there will be an ongoing kind of rolling FAQ, but that is where your questions should go. So I'm going to, I'll hang on for the next 25 minutes or so and answer the questions. If folks want to jump, thank you so much for your time, but we'll be here. Question that we answered about using the same Zoom link. Yes, we will. How are changes noted within a document? That's a good question. So within the Instructional Continuity Framework page, you'll see the changes listed in orange. And then we can, I'm actually going to write that down and we'll bring that back to the team. So that's a great point to bring up about changes to the document. Right now, you'll see there's a section for resources coming soon, for example, and then there's also a section for resources within this detailed guidance. We already updated it today, so March 30th. So the document has been updated, but within each section, you'll see there's TA resources coming soon. So once we have those resources up, they'll jump out of the coming soon bucket and they'll move into another bucket, which is TEA resources. There's a question about posting best practices from districts regarding grading policies and class rank calculations. I believe those, the guidance document for that is under section 2.2, which is around progress monitoring. Back up. I think the table of contents is actually the best place to show that. So the question around grading policies, those are under grading and progress monitoring policies. Keep in mind that grading decisions, grading policies, class ranks are all local decisions, but we have posted some information there to help. Great question around, are districts required to have an instructional continuity plan developed and posted? Want to highlight this. very loudly and very clearly. Districts are not required to use this planning tool at all. Districts are not required to have an instructional continuity plan based on this tool at all. These are strictly put out there as resources for you, resources for your district, guidance for your district, because we know you're thinking about the same things that 1,200 other districts in the state of Texas are thinking about right now, and that's how to continue instruction for your kids, make sure that they're safe, and keep the hard work that you're doing. So this is not required at all. These are a collection of best practices and guidance for you. You are not required to post this. You are not required to submit this to TEA. We have a question about receiving an email notification when changes are made to the framework. Again, these changes are being made every day. We will work with our team and figure out how we can make sure that line information, that information gets to you. And we'll think about the existing structures that we already have, such as the superintendent call or another way. But good question and noted. Thank you for asking. It's a great question here on providing samples for small rural districts that have limited connectivity availability. A lot of sample resources are from large urban districts. Agreed. I think that this is something that we're trying to build out. Our goal is to have resources that fit a wide variety of the districts that are out there. So we have included some examples that are small district, rural district specific. I think one of the things you could do is looking at this at the phase specific site, you can roll through. You have San Saba is one that's a smaller district that you can learn from. We have Lytle ISD, Clint ISD that are up there. But noted, we'll try to balance out the amount of resources from rural and larger urban districts. One thing I want to add to that response is a lot of this is going to be adapting. You're going to need to really dig into that, assessing your landscape within your district, and then adapt that to an online model. And then the resources that we have are just that, resources to help you to do that. And so I think that the question is absolutely right. There's not a one size fits all model, even if it is a rural district as well. There's a question that, does the state have recommendations for the amount of time students should spend working on school-related materials and assignments per grade level? We do not have recommendations on that. We have provided sample student schedules within phase 3.1, I believe that is. So you can see what other folks are looking at. We don't have our recommendations, but we do have some resources to help you kind of see what other folks are doing. Great question around supporting students with special needs. If you go back out to, if you kick back out from the instructional continuity framework and you actually go back to the general coronavirus site, you'll see that there's also guidance from our special education team with specific guidance in both English and Spanish related to special education specific requirements and kind of best practices. So that's a place that you can go to see those. Kind of our next phase here with our planning tools is also to develop kind of the connection between the instructional continuity framework and students with special needs and each individual exceptionality. So please stay tuned for that. And also if you have feedback and thoughts on that, please definitely reach out to our team. And if you send an email to disasterinfo@tea.texas.org, we can get back to you. Question, are there any one-to-one iPad tablet districts with sample schedules out there? We've provided in phase 3, this is one of my favorite resources. It's actually Um, it's a spreadsheet that lists just different models. So you see different school districts on the left, the kind of the name of what they've created in a description, and then you'll see individual columns that highlight some of the specificities of each of their time. We do not have one specifically that calls out one-to-one, but what you do see is something that says high tech. So this would be something that's pretty darn close to one-to-one. So you'll see there's some helpful guides out there from districts across the state and even some others throughout the country. Question about where is the version 2 instructional something found on the TA website? If the most up-to-date resources will always be listed on the instructional continuity planning framework. Um, this, so the tool, all the most up-to-date resources are included right here. You'll see we even got an update this morning as we were talking for our guidance document. So these most up-to-date ones are the ones that I would focus on and really dig into as kind of your latest the latest piece of excuse me, the latest instruction, the latest information that we've been able to post to districts. Looking through the chat at some of the responses in there, I think hear you on grading. Again, no, that it's a local decision, but what we're hearing through the comments is essentially make sure, like, give us some guidance, give us some help, even though you're not requiring anything. So that noted. Thank you very much. So, question about will you have examples for charters? We are, we look at all of our kids are all of our kids, and so a lot of these examples that you see within the framework are from, they're from ISDs, they're from charters. Where right now we're figuring out what's best for kids, and we're getting that information out to you all. So you will see both charter and district information in our framework. Again, with credit and grade specific questions, a couple things. One is there's guidance posted within phase 2, set grading and progress monitoring policies. So you see there's some of the kind of legal requirements that are based on that. We've, from those legal requirements, built out some guidance for grading. And then as noted earlier, we're gonna be, and you can see San Saba's grading policy here, but we'll be compiling more district examples for best practices. Yeah, great point about, we previously showed a document about low tech and high tech. Would be helpful to see how districts are assisting families without internet access. Absolutely. I think that's really a part of this landscape analysis to make sure. It sounds like you're already ahead of the game and know that there's a subset of your students that don't have that access. So once that decision has been made, or once that understanding is made aware, then I would walk through the rest of the document to be able to see, or the resources to see some kind of low tech examples. I will say we're seeing a lot of folks that are building out, honestly, packets of instructional materials and being able to communicate with students, maybe with via phone or another way. So a lot of the information that would be under the lower tech piece of this is in 3.5, which is purchase, print, distribute instructional materials. which you can peruse through and reach out if you don't have another example. A question on where was the example you pulled up for district samples. Want to highlight two things here. This Excel file right here, at home learning schedules, district examples, has kind of a compilation of a lot of the district examples that we've seen. So that's one. A similar document that I find really interesting and helpful is 3.2, which is staffing model. And this takes a similar approach, but this is specific to individual staff expectations. And you see the different considerations that are broken apart there. If you have questions specific to staffing models, student schedules, and these resources, definitely join our phase 3 webinar, which will be on Tuesday. A question around state guidance for students using live video recording, such as Zoom. We may have some tools. Those would likely be in 2.1 or section 2, which is design, determine your at-home instructional model. It could also be in section, go back to our planning tool. Could also be in section, it would likely be up in section 2.1, which would be around kind of the different delivery methods. So the delivery methods is kind of the term that we aligned on for ways that students can get learning. And so that's where that guidance would be, but submit any extra questions you have to disasterinfo@ta.texas.gov if you need more guidance. A question about listserv that folks should be signing up for in order to get updates on instructional continuity. A couple of things. One is I can talk to our communications team. I believe that the information about this webinar that went out to, that is our chief kind of listserv that we're using to get this information to the field. Again, we are in a time of a lot of ambiguity, but also a lot of rapid development, rapid resource development, rapid improvements. So honestly, what I have done is put in an invitation into my calendar for every day at 8:30 to come back to this site, instructional continuity framework, and look for the new dates. So what happened over the past couple of days, so that I can reorient and then go in and see the changes. There's a question about some feedback on the grading document. Thank you for submitting that. We will we'll look back with our team and make sure that that information is accurate. Thank you, Raul at Rio Hondo ISD. Just said, hey folks, we're this is in the chat, but you can access their website at rhisd.net. They said they offered a low-tech option to students, smaller rural community, prepped and mailed packets for students. Raul, I hope you know you just offered to have us add that to our list. So thanks so much. Again, it's been incredible to be able to look at the work that's happening out in the field. So if you all have stuff that you're doing within your districts that you believe can be would be helpful to other folks, please send them along to us. You can also reach out to me directly at andrew.hodge@tea.texas.gov. I'll put that in the chat right now, and we can make sure those resources get pulled to the appropriate pages. Yeah, there's a question for Raul, and then we also had Rosebud Lot ISD wanted to put up their information. So they are so Rio Hondo is just the access, the internet page. The web page is rhisd.net. I'm sure if you just Google Rio Hondo ISD, you can find it. And then Natalie out at Rosebud Lot ISD has some online campus assignments. That's rlisd.org if you want to check that out. Again, what you'll see in our planning guide is we will be updating these documents, and they'll include examples like this. That's been our goal, is to say, hey, these are districts where we've heard, we've seen or they've proposed resources that we can add. All right, y'all, I see folks are dropping. I'm going to stick on for the next 10 minutes or so in case any more questions come up. But again, want to say thank you for joining today. I know you have a busy and crazy schedule, but we appreciate you spending that time with us. Keep giving us feedback. We're looking to continuously improve and create something that's going to be useful for you folks. So with that said, have a wonderful week. Have a wonderful Monday. March is almost over. That's a plus. So have a great, wonderful rest of your week. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for all you do for our students in Texas. Barbara will send out we will host the recording of the webinar on our webpage. So check back to that instructional continuity framework page. It'll be up as soon as we can. Give a shout out to Bandera ISD, who's doing both. They have both high tech and low tech options on choice boards. You go to banderaisd.net, click COVID-19, and then the learning at home. You can access the elementary page. Also, fun fact: Bandera ISD, cowboy capital of the world. Jan, how many students do y'all have out at Bullard ISD? Bullard ISD has about 2,700 students, 2,800 students. And if you go to their website, Bullard, Bullard, they have some links, open resources, some at-home learning opportunities posted. Thank you for volunteering to be added to our list, Jan. Van Vleck ISD down in southern Matagorda County has some Wi-Fi hotspots going out to their folks. Doing some vetting of online curriculum. Folks at Van Vleck and anybody else, Randy, out there looking at those online curriculum, make sure to tune in on, I believe it is Wednesday for this, for phase 2. We'll have some in-depth kind of building out that online curriculum, some kind of processes, different digital resources out there. One thing, Randy, is we have, there's a initiative called Math Innovation Zones with some other folks close to Matagorda are part of, pre-vetted online curriculum programs. Our 3 approved vendors are IXL Math, ST Math, and Imagine Math. ST Math and IXL Math are both offering free licenses. So I'll throw those in the chat as well, just to expand your search. Stay on for about 1 more minute. Any other questions, please get them in. Otherwise, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for being here. Thanks for doing what you do for our students here in Texas. There will be information covered in the next couple webinars about bilingual. Specifically, there are a handful of online curriculum programs out there that are supporting students who speak more than one language. So I don't know the exact resources, but I would dig around in this in phase 2, probably 2.1 for bilingual resources.